I just had my energy drink. Can you tell? Super hyper. Hey, welcome back to Spellbound. It's me, BEEJ, and it's been quite a while. I've been away for a couple of reasons. First of all, the logistics of filming. The past couple of my videos, the past several, in fact, have been like me trying to figure out this new camera that I got, and the video quality was just crap. And I just kept making crap videos and I wasn't enjoying them. I wasn't enjoying editing them. It just wasn't working out. So I was like, you know what? I can't seem to figure out this new camera. I am completely disinterested in investing the time to learn how to work it properly. So I'm just gonna go back to my phone videos, my phone quality, and we're just gonna take it from there. It's okay. It does not have to be cinematic. I just want to talk about books, and I would like to be well lit while I'm talking about books. Reason number two was I always do this video, and it's always at the end of the year. And I genuinely enjoy making this video, okay? But it takes hours. It takes hours of preparation to make the video, and it takes hours and hours in post-production to make this video. And by like halfway through editing it, I'm over it. I'm done. And also now it's mid-May. So I still don't know if that video will ever get finished editing, if I'm gonna even keep going back to it. The video itself is dark once again because of like camera issues, and that kind of burnt me out. It burnt me out so much that I just didn't want to continue. And then the third and kind of most important reason is that, as it turns out, fascism slows for no one, and I have been quite involved in different ways of fighting fascism. And then also I've just missed you all, you know? I've missed this weird parasocial one-sided relationship with you. And also with having a dedicated space to talk about books and my endless amount of bookish opinions. And so I am just really happy to be back behind the camera again so that I can tell you about all the great books that I've been reading, and you can tell me about the great books that you've been reading, and we can just continue this great relationship. And this video specifically is pretty easy. It's pretty chill. It's what you clicked on with the thumbnail. It's 5 5-star books that I have read so far in 2026. And we're starting off strong with the very first 5-star book that I read in January, Wyrd Sisters by Terry Pratchett. This is a Discworld novel. Discworld is a series, an incredibly prolific series. I don't know how many novels are in the Discworld series. I'm thinking like in the 40s. He has created some standalones, some duologies, some trilogies, and some series and some crossovers all within this place called Discworld, which is kind of like our world, but also entirely upside down. This is obviously my first foray. I haven't read any others outside of here, but I do know that he's beloved. Like this is Terry Pratchett, you know? He's just like a staple. You'll be hard pressed to go into a bookstore, or especially a used bookstore, and in the fantasy section and not find a Terry Pratchett novel. So I can't talk about the Discworld as an overall because I have a sample size of one of like however many that he wrote. What I can say about this book specifically, that I loved it, but also that this is a sort of, but not, retelling of Macbeth, specifically like the Three Witches of Macbeth, which is the best part of Macbeth. And everyone knows that. So this is kind of the telling of that story from their perspective, if that story took place in Discworld. And the three witches specifically are Granny Weatherwax, whom I would die for, by the way, Nanny Ogg, and Margaret Garlick. And they're all like different ages. So Granny Weatherwax is like super old. Nanny Ogg is like very practical, down to earth, and like middle-aged. And then Margaret Garlick is sort of like a young woman up and coming. And what I can tell you about this book is that it is incredibly smart. So like literary girlies, literary readers are going to really, really enjoy this, especially if you like Shakespeare, obviously. But just in general, this book was incredibly intelligent nonsense, which is the best kind of nonsense. You know, it's nonsense with a purpose. It's highbrow nonsense. It's a lot of literary inside jokes. It's a lot of delight, while also just like telling a very fun, fantastical story. I don't think that you have to like Shakespeare to like this book. I don't think it's required, but I do think that it helps. And I think that it helped me enjoy the book tremendously because I already liked the source material. I already liked the story that it was telling, which made me appreciate and enjoy all of the inside jokes and everything therein. It's just a really fun time, but you do need to like nonsense. If you are not delighted by whimsy, I would definitely give this one, and Terry Pratchett in general, probably a miss, because high degrees of whimsy. Then I read Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. Now, I had already read this novel a few years ago when I thought this was a standalone novel. I was delighted and also incredibly frustrated to learn that it was the beginning of a trilogy the year that I picked this up. But the year that I did pick this up, this was my best book of the year. I loved this book. This book is fantastic. A 5-star book, obviously, just like last time and all the others in this list. This is a 5-star book. But this year I did go back and I read the entire trilogy. So yes, I am talking about this book, but I'm also talking about this book and the immediate sequel, Painted Devils. This book is a fairy tale retelling of The Goose Girl, and fairy tale retellings are already top tier for me in general, but also like right now, like this is just, we are living in the golden age of fairy tales, right? I hope you know that. If Once Upon a Time wasn't the biggest clue. I can't even say that with a straight face. So this story follows Vanya, and Vanya is the goddaughter of Death and Fortune. Fortune. I try and say fortune, but that sounds like really obnoxious, like fortune. But if I don't, then I'm gonna sound like really southern and be like, the goddaughter of Death and Fortune. So and she is also a liar, a thief, and an imposter. And she steals, as in the classic fairy tale, she steals the identity of a princess, which is the story of the Goose Girl. And in doing so, she becomes known as the Pentergast, I think, which in Germanic is like the penny phantom, the penny ghost. And she steals from nobility and leaves like a penny in the place as like her calling card, right? So that the nobility knows that they've been bested by someone who is poor. She is like on this like heist spree, and she gets caught by a different god, and the god curses her and says, you have to return all that was lost by like X number of days, maybe like the next full moon or something. Otherwise you're going to turn into a pile of rubies and diamonds. She like pops out a ruby like teardrop right under her face, and then she like starts popping out in rubies and diamonds all over her body. So that is where this story kind of starts, and that is what this tale is. It's a very long book, and it's perfect. It is a perfect book. This book had a lot to say about millennial hustle culture, about being born into an environment that has set you up to fail and has put you in a class and rigged the rules so that you cannot escape the class that you're born into. So I love, obviously, a fairy tale retelling of all kinds, but I love a fairy tale retelling with social commentary. And that is why this was my best book of 2022. And it was still, like, even on a reread, it hit so hard. It was so, so good. Second in the trilogy. It was almost as good. I would say it was like a 4.5 or 4.75. It was a delightful story. Like, the plot was there. It was all plot, but it didn't have as much of the fluffy character time that we spent with a lot of the characters that we came to know and love here. It was just a masterclass in plot, which was fantastic, but also made it feel like, I think I described it as like a really dense protein bar with like 25 grams of protein and like a gram of sugar, you know? So it's like you're eating it and you're like, I'm full. So that's what the sequel was like, but I still have to praise this first book because it also stands on its own really well. Like, it's on its own. This is just about a perfect book. So, Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. The next book I do not have physically because as soon as I was done reading it, I immediately lent it out to one of my friends, and there's an actual queue of my friends who want to read it, and I am just letting it, you know, make the rounds because it was so, so good. This is called White Women, Everything You Already Know About Your Own Racism and How to Do Better. So I read some type of nonfiction on racism or anti-racism about once a month, and this is probably my favorite book in that realm that I have read. It is so different from the others in that the tone isn't soft. I understand why, and have in fact encouraged other white women to read a lot of these deconstructing and anti-racism books in a particular order, in a way that caters to our own white fragility and like making sure that our defenses can come down slowly so that we can receive criticism on the ways that we benefit from racism. That is a statement and a point in and of itself, that is how that needs to happen, because of how racism functions and is supported systemically and socially. That in itself is a problem, and is the problem illustrated in a lot of these books, that like we can't even look at our own internalized racism and structural racism that we support, because even just reading about it like hurts our own feelings, that we then make it about ourselves and cry and our defenses raise. You know, like that's our own cognitive dissonance at play. But actually, what I liked the most about this book in particular was that it wasn't written to be catered to me, to convince me of my own racism. It starts at a baseline of like, girl, you know what you're doing. You know that this is racist, and here's how. And here's how you know that what you're doing is wrong. And here's how you know that you are participating and benefiting from this structure. I appreciated this tone. I like that this book wasn't written to coddle me. I like that it was written to call out, actually, it's not, racism in these ways is not that invisible to you. And here's how we know, and here's how we can prove it, and here's how we in fact demonstrate it regularly. So it is written by these two women who their entire business, it's really, really neat. Their entire business is they will be contacted by a host who is white to host these dinners to basically help understand race dynamics at play. So these white women will host dinner parties, and they will hire these two women to come and talk about racism at these dinners. And invariably, 100% of the time, it becomes a somewhat disaster, like a social disaster at the dinner table, because one or all of the guests at the table will become defensive, flustered, combative, upset, and demonstrate in real time the need to shut down the conversation around racism because of how difficult it is for the white women to talk about and to really like hear and sit with and sit in that discomfort. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And so I've seen a couple of these dinners. I think their business started in like 2020 or so. And I've seen a couple of them, I don't know how, like on social media, but also on TV. Like I think they did it with a couple of like lower celebrities at one point. And it's really incredible to see their talking points like play out in real time, and how you could have a productive dialogue, but most often than not, you can't with these white women because of how this plays out in real time, of how this is how white fragility manifests. This is how white solidarity manifests. This is what this looks like in real time at the dinner table. And it's also such a white space, right? Like these social rules, these social etiquette rules of a dinner party, and how they function and how they function to support white solidarity is in fact what makes it such a pressure cooker of an environment to have this type of conversation. It's not a relaxed in the parlor conversation. It's that everyone has agreed to stay at this dinner table. And unless you as a white woman like get upset, this is not a place for white tears, you need to leave. And even that as a rule, becomes like another demonstration of like that they want to stay at this dinner table to perform their tears so that they can demonstrate that they're not racist. It's brilliant. I can't talk about it enough. But the book itself is not even about the dinner parties. It's just about like, this is what we do. And through doing this, here is how we can talk about and literally demonstrate why we don't hold space anymore for these like hold your hand and pet your hair like white girl, you're racist kind of stuff, because you already know, and here's how we can prove it. And that direct call out was so fantastic as a tone, but also as just another way to look at this through like an unlearning type of lens. It was fantastic. I loved this book so much. I want to learn so much more about these women and what they do and how they do what they do. So I cannot recommend it enough. It is not a long book. It's not a lot of theory. Like, it's not very nonfiction-y and like that it reads very highbrow or like school. It reads like a conversation, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's just one of the best ones that I've read at all. The next one I read is When Marnie Was There by Joan G. Robinson. So this one has been on my shelf for a really long time because I love the Studio Ghibli film. This actually might be my favorite Studio Ghibli film. And so this is a middle grade book that is so sad. It's so dreamy, and it's just this beautiful book. So it's about this girl who really struggles at school. She just can't seem to be social. She can't seem to make friends. She feels very trapped in her head a lot. She feels often like an outsider and, I don't know, just alone, alone and misunderstood. And she can't really seem to make connections with anybody around her because she feels unlovable. And it's really sad. So she is kind of sent away to the countryside, I guess, to go live with some other people for a little while. And they are pretty hands-off, they're kind of more country people, and they give her a lot of freedom to go roam and explore. And she goes and she explores this like marsh, I guess, that floods when the tide comes in, and she's just spends so much time there, just like picking the flowers in this marshy area and letting her feet soak and everything. And there's this like giant, weird, dark house called the Marsh House that like overlooks the back of this marsh, and it's stone and dark and looks like a castle and whatever, but it just looks like it holds secrets. And one day she like sees a girl from this window, and she's like, hold up, there's someone living there in that really dark, crazy house, like crazy. After a while, she starts to see this girl more and more, and eventually she's able to take a boat all the way across the high tide and dock it at this house where she meets this girl. And the girl's name is Marnie, and she's beautiful and she looks nothing like her. She's got this long, beautiful blonde hair, and she lives in this house, and she also feels just the way that Anna feels. Anna's our main character. She's the only little girl in this house, and her parents are very rarely there. She's raised by her maids and her nurse, and they're not very kind to her. They play a lot of tricks on her a lot, and they have this like really beautiful friendship, but it's kind of weird and hazy too. Like sometimes Marnie's there and sometimes she's not, and sometimes they kind of disappear from each other, and the whole thing is just really dreamy. And I don't want to tell you more than that because the rest would like spoil it, but it's just a really beautiful dreamlike book that I think a lot of bookish girlies will relate to, I think being misunderstood, in general, is like at some point all kids feel this way. But I think especially if you relate to Anna and her family situation and her background, this is really, really touching and heartwarming. And I just loved it. This had all of them. I was worried that this book wouldn't have the same magic that the film does because the film is so beautiful. But the book itself does. It's a gorgeous book, and I highly recommend it. It's a really beautiful summer read for sure. And my final book is Bunny by Mona Awad. I don't know if it's Awad or Awad, but I love this book. I knew that I would. I did. I had been putting it off for years because I knew how much I would love it. It's so freaking weird. What is it even about? Like, it's weird. And that's the number one word that I had heard for years to describe this book. When all of the girlies on their YouTube channel would just get up and be like, this book is so weird, I don't know what to say, I'd be like, sold. I know exactly what it's about though, So this is about this girl, and she's in a writing class in college or grad school, and she's kind of obsessed with this group of girls that she calls bunnies, but also that they call each other bunny. in this group, and she has like really unflattering names for them because she's obsessed with them, but she also kind of hates them too. And she desperately wants to be one of them, but also desperately wants to see herself as like separate from them. Really brilliant commentary on modern female friendships anyway, like within patriarchy, you know, but especially in an environment that is so tense and personal and vulnerable, like a small writing class, right? So this has a lot to say about the darker shadow side of like female friendships, but it's also not just commentary on female friendships. It's also like satire, and it's mostly satire, okay? But it also about the intersection between friendships and writing, and the intersection between like the vulnerability of writing and the opiate of being seen through your writing and through the words that you produce and the stories that you tell, like wanting to put it out there so that you are seen and known, but also the terror of doing so in a way that like you're perceived, you know, corporeally for the things from your soul that you emit on paper. This has a lot to say about that. Also, just a lot of absurdity in it because it is satire, but also the idea of like what you have to do to produce good work. Like the idea of kill your darlings is present in this book in really hysterical ways. So yes, this book is weird. You're not meant to read it literally, obviously. I think most people who read this know that. But also, like, I can definitely see some of the criticism. Like, if you're just picking this book up, you have to want to read an intelligent, highbrow satire in order to like this book. This is not a read it at face value and enjoy it book. So there's been a lot of criticisms that it's like intentionally inflated, that it's intentionally hard to understand. I understand that, and like to a degree it is. So if you don't think that this book is for you, I wouldn't go for it and pick it up, you know? It is commentary, it is saying something, it is participate. It's not just commenting, it's participating in a conversation around what obsession looks like in different forms, and like how closely obsession and vulnerability is and can be socially and also through writing. I loved this book tremendously. It was so weird. It was so weird, but I can't recommend it enough. You know, it's a 5-star book if you like this type of book, I guess. And that's it for me. Those were 5 5-star books that I have read so far in 2026. And now I'm dying to know what books you have been reading this year. What are your 5-star books? What have you been reading? Even if they're not 5-star, like perfect books, what have you been up to? I feel like I miss you guys. You know, I want to know. I want to hear from you. So let me know below what you have been reading, what you've been picking up, and I will see you in my next one.